Welcome to the SkySwitch University webinar series. This is Jason Jones of SkySwitch. And on behalf of SkySwitch, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And we hope you find today's topic on business SMS both informative and advantageous to your future business. Our business SMS webinars have been the most highly attended, and it clearly demonstrates to us the increased demand for business SMS solutions at both the service provider and end user environment level. So I hope you find today's presentation really useful for your business. Today's presenter is Eric Hernais, President and founder of SkySwitch. Regarding the format of today's webinar, we will present all the slides and content in its entirety, then have a thorough Q&A session at the end. In your control panel, you will see a chat box. So please type your questions in that area during the webinar, and we will address all the questions at the end of the webinar. Next, I want to just kind of give you a brief overview for those who are not SkySwitch resellers. A little bit about SkySwitch is a next generation communications platform provider. We empower white label resellers to offer next generation communication services to their end users that help them compete at a very high level within their local markets and global markets. These services include hosted PBX and UCaaS, unified communications and collaborations as a service, hosted call center, virtual fax, web conferencing, and video surveillance. Behind the scenes, the SkySwitch team provides the application systems and operational and business support systems needed to make everything come together and work together seamlessly with minimal downtime and very high availability. Without further ado, I'd like to turn the webinar over to Eric Hernais, President of SkySwitch. Take it away, Eric.
Thanks, Jason. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Today's webinar is about the Keyword Responder Bot. We've done several webinars on business SMS, and I've gotten a lot of feedback asking for the opportunity to dive a little more deeply into what the keyword responder is and how it can be used. And so the idea behind today's presentation is just to talk about some of the ways that we see it being used and some of the ideas that perhaps you'll be able to use to improve your business. I say it all the time, but I'd just like to reiterate that I think business SMS is going to be an integral part of everybody's UCaaS service. In 5 years, it will be as prevalent as email or even a website. It's just going to happen. The fact that you can start selling it today through SkySwitch gives you a huge advantage. We get asked all the time, well, how would you sell against X, Y, or Z provider? You know, what things can I do that differentiate me? Today, business SMS differentiates you absolutely because nobody else is selling it quite the way we're selling it. So it's an advantage that you should take advantage of soon. Okay, so I'll just jump right in here. What is the Keyword Responder Bot? In a sentence, it's an automated tool to send SMS replies to keywords. You can think of it as an auto attendant for cell phone callers. So all of the things that you would want that your customers do with auto attendants can be done with the keyword responder, except it's over a text message instead of listening to an audio message. And it's actually a lot more powerful than an auto attendant because with an auto attendant, you're limited to just the numbers on your keypad to select options, whereas with the keyword responder, you can have any number of complex words that will trigger responses. So if you can think of a customer that uses the auto attendant and has made the kinds of requests that you get every day, I'm sure, for auto attendant configuration, many of those things you can do better with the keyword responder using SMS, just in a slightly different way that we believe is going to be more prevalent as time goes on. So today, the keyword responder works with any VoIP telephone number in the United States. So a couple things there. It does not work with cell phone numbers, so you can't port the SMS part of a cell phone number over to our system, but any other phone number, whether it's a regular DID or a toll-free number in the United States will work. Now, we also support regular and toll-free numbers in Canada, with the exception that we can't do MMS in Canada. So in the United States, it's any telephone number for SMS and MMS. In Canada, it's any telephone number for SMS only. The keyword responder bot is integrated with our directory bot. And the directory bot is the company directory, so the same company directory that you would find in the auto attendant, where you can enter the 3 letters of a person's first or last name and get connected to their extension. Well, the directory bot is just that, except it's done by SMS. So you can, if you think about it as an SMS version of the auto attendant, it only makes sense that the directory bot is the company directory, and the keywords are all the other options that you have available to you to reply to a customer's SMS message. And then it's not dependent on ReachUC, as hopefully everyone on the call knows. ReachUC is our mobility client, and it is possible to send and receive SMS messages over ReachUC, but you don't have to use ReachUC with the responder bot. It's a completely separate service. Using SMS, you can use them in conjunction, but you don't have to. Okay, so this is probably the number one question that I talk about when I talk to resellers about the keyword responder. And we're always brainstorming about, well, who can I sell it to? Well, to begin with, anyone with an auto attendant is a potential user for the keyword responder. As I've said in previous webinars, the next generation of customers, well, actually, it's not even the next generation, millennials and everybody after millennials would rather send text messages than talk on the phone. So eventually, business communication systems will have to catch up with that. Today, as you probably know from your personal experience, SMS is used in businesses. The only thing is it's used with personal devices. If you are talking to somebody at a business and you have the type of relationship where it's possible you'll a lot of times SMS them. I know with many of you on this call, you send me SMS messages all the time, and frankly, I prefer to get an SMS message rather than a phone call. But that same dynamic, that same relationship applies to everybody. And so being able to converge the SMS infrastructure with the business UCaaS service that you're selling today is inevitable. It's going to require change, a change in the way you think, the way in the way you sell. But as I've been saying, I think it's something that will happen and will only make you more successful. So the easy examples of auto attendant is hours of operation, driving directions, really anything that you would configure a message on your auto attendant for. The difference is, unlike an auto attendant where you're just listening to the response, with an SMS message, you can send a much richer, a much more comprehensive reply. So instead of just saying we're located at, you can send a link to a Google map. You could send a very comprehensive set of directions. Really, it's limited really only by your imagination. And because you can send an MMS message, you could send a picture or a video or really anything. So if you think about it in terms of doing what the auto attendant does, but for cell phone callers by SMS, I think that opens up a different way of perceiving and perhaps presenting this to your customers. So some of the other examples that we've seen resellers use: businesses with multiple locations. Today, this might be done on a company's website, find a location near you. But it could also be done with an SMS message where you send in an SMS message with a zip code, and the reply would be the closest location to that zip code. Very simple to do, very powerful for any company that has multiple locations. Any business that's subject to external conditions. So if you think about an auto attendant, the kinds of things you do, we have customers that provide service to ski resorts, and they like to update the ski conditions on the auto attendant. Well, that's a perfect thing for an SMS message also. Really anything that would require a person normally to answer the same repetitive kind of question that comes in usually over the telephone, or of course if you were going to put that on the auto attendant, anything that you think is important to put on an auto attendant and reply to a customer is probably a good candidate to make an SMS keyword for as well. Another example is businesses with shifting inventory. So we have resellers who are working with real estate brokers. The idea being that you can put a little code on any real estate sign, for sale sign, and sending that code to the real estate broker's phone number will reply with more information about the property. It could be pictures of the inside, it could be a video, it could be the full MLS listing, anything. We have a reseller using Business SMS with a used car dealer who wants to make the latest inventory available. We also have a reseller working with a pawn shop, and the idea is that the pawn shop is, and I've come to learn that this is common with pawn shops and consignment shops. They post advertisements on Craigslist or OfferUp or any other online things, and the first thing that happens when somebody sees that advertisement in the classified ad is they send a reply that says, "Is it still available?" Right? And they're doing this with personal mobile phones. They just, as anybody who's used Craigslist knows, it's generally a mobile phone that's the number there, and they'll say, "Is it available?" Well, that's a very good candidate for an SMS keyword. If you can send an auto reply talking about that particular item, the code for that item can trigger a specific response. Outdoor advertising. Any time where you have an outdoor sign, whether it's a billboard or a sign on a bench, for example, where real estate is limited, right? It's at a premium. You have to get your message across. But how do you convey more information about whatever product or service that billboard is selling? Well, an SMS in many cases, as we see today, people put websites on there. But websites are not, although they're universal and everybody has one, you might forget the website, right? It's very easy to put it in a code with a keyword and send back information. You can send back the link for the website, which makes it very convenient for the users. So these are just some of the examples of the types of uses that we're seeing. I'm sure you can think of many more, and one of the purposes of this call or this webinar really is to start talking about it during the QA session. I'm hoping that you'll post your ideas and we can start talking about it and sharing it with everybody on the webinar. Okay, so another thing that we get asked all the time is, what does it cost? Well, that's a good question. The service is currently in beta mode. We're not charging anything for it now. And frankly, we're still debating on what the final costs will be. Because this is a new service and it's not something that's commonly available, it's hard for us to figure out what the right price is out there. Obviously, we want you to be successful. We want it to be a key part of your business. So we want it to be priced right so that you can generate revenue and find it a profitable part of your business. So what we can say, though, is while it's in beta mode, we're not going to charge. And any customers that you turn up while it's in beta mode, we're going to offer the best pricing. So whatever the pricing will obviously be tiered, as all our services are. But whatever that tiering happens to be, for any customers that you put on while we're in beta mode, you'll automatically get the benefit of the best tier pricing. When we do actually price it, it's going to be based on the entitlements. And the current thinking is it will be based on the number of keywords. Now, this is subject to change, of course, based on feedback that we receive from you. But the idea being that a business that only needs a couple keywords wouldn't want to pay as much as a business that needs hundreds or thousands of keywords. And so the pricing will be reflected that way is what we're currently thinking. To put a number out there in terms of retail price, we're talking about $25 MRC per seat or per user device. This is again, there's very little actual data to go on, so this is just a stab in a good guesstimate, if you will, of what the market will bear. But by comparison, ZipWhip, which is the most well-known provider of this type of service, sells the same service for $100 per month. So you'll see that they have two prices listed on their website: $35 for a limited service, and $100 for their business service. Now, the $35 service just lets you business SMS enable a phone number and send messages back and forth with an app, which you can do today with Business SMS and Reach UC, for example. Their $100 model version gives you the keyword responder. So you'll see down there it says auto replies. Well, the auto reply is based on a keyword. So this is the exact same service that you can provide to your customers, but you can do it better. You can do it better because you control the voice routing, and we've given you capabilities that you cannot do with ZipWhip, such as integration with the auto attendant and the company directory, so that you can find people within the company once you start that SMS conversation and convert that SMS dialogue into a phone call. Right? We make it very easy to start out a dialogue as an SMS conversation, and then the SMS responder can reply with a person's name. A keyword could say, if you'd like to talk to somebody, reply with their name. And replying with that name will automatically give them the option to turn that into a phone call, where now the system is going to call them and connect them to the person at that business. This is a huge differentiator. You could sell against ZipWhip and beat them any day of the week. But then think about selling against the typical competitors, Vonage, RingCentral, 8x8, all of the common names that we come across every day. Nobody can do this yet. Not to say that will always be the case, but you've got an advantage because we're there first. Okay, so now I wanted to just get into some of the basics about how it's configured. So there are two places to log in. You can log in from the Dash Manager, and anybody who does not yet have the keyword responder menu item available in your Dash Manager, please make a request to support if you'd like to try it. You can log in as the reseller there, and once you've logged in as the reseller, you can then manage your domains in much the same way that you manage PBX domains and seats. We also have an end user login from a branded website. This is available. It was started being available this week. I'll show you how to access it. But this means that your end users, your office managers and basic users in the PBX, can log into the SMS user interface and manage and configure their own keywords. So just a couple things. This does require a wildcard SSL certificate. In order to work, I know not everybody, not all resellers have provided wildcard SSL certificates. Some have given us specific certificates for the PBX portal or Meeting Manager or some of the other websites. But to use this, it will require, or to use the end user login, that is, it will require a wildcard SSL certificate. Now, you don't have to give your users the end user login. You could configure it for them through the Dash Manager reseller login. But if you want to give your end users access to it, then you'll need to give us the wildcard SSL certificate. Once you log in, as I mentioned, office managers and basic users can both log in. Each will see a different thing though. The office manager is going to see all of the DIDs in the domain that have been routed to the SMS bot. So much like an office manager today in the PBX portal can manage all the services within the domain, it's the same concept. The office manager in the keyword responder UI can manage all of the DIDs that are being used for SMS. Basic users, on the other hand, can only manage DIDs that they own, which is to say DIDs that are routed to that user. So if your user on the PBX has a DID that's routed directly to it, then when you log into the keyword responder user interface, you'll be able to configure and manage that DID. What does that mean? It means if you have a DID that's pointed to an auto attendant or some other system user, then somebody would have to log in as that user, that auto attendant, so the auto attendant's login, for example, to be able to manage the DID that's associated with that. Okay, so some of the things to watch out for, because there are several steps, and I'll go over them next. But the troubleshooting checklist is number one, that you have an entitlement available. So whatever user is logging in will have to have the entitlement. There will have to be at least one DID routed to the SMS bot, which I will go over. And then if the user that's logging in is not an office manager, you just have to make sure that that user owns the phone number, which is to say that the phone number is routed to that user in the PBX. Because we use single sign-on for this interface, it means that the login for the SMS keyword responder UI is using the same usernames and passwords that you would use to log into the PBX portal. Okay, so this is a screenshot showing the SMS responder menu item in the Dash Manager. So that's where you'll find it, right under Manage PBX. It will be one of the options. In terms of branding, there's now a new place to manage branding. If you click on your avatar in the top right corner, you'll see reseller settings, which has always been the place where you manage the other dashboard users within your organization. Now there's an option there for branding. And if you were to select that option, you'll see the menu on the left-hand side. And one of the items on that menu is the SMS login page. So from this page, you're going to be able to create a custom domain. So the domain can be anything you'd like it to be, as long as it matches the SSL certificate. And this is the reason why the wildcard SSL certificate is needed, because we're giving you the freedom to name that domain anything you want. So you'll notice in this example, it says smsresponder.skyswitch.com. That's the domain. You can change that to be anything. It could be SMS, it could be, you name it. But because we don't know what it's going to be in advance, that's why the wildcard certificate is needed. But you'll notice some of the other options on this page are you can control the title that's seen and in the browser. You can control the position of the login box. You can control the background of the screen. Here, the color is a nice green, but it could be any color you choose. You could even have an image as the background. And then, of course, you can control all of the colors of the login box itself, which includes the text and the border and the buttons. So again, this has been available for the past couple of days in the Dash Manager. If you're not seeing this from your Dash Manager, please open a ticket with support and we'll make sure it works for you. Okay, so there's 3 steps to configure the keyword responder, and I'm going to go through those steps, and we can actually show it live during the question and answer session. The first step is to route the DID to the directory bot. The second step is to add the entitlement for the PBX user that will be logging in to configure this. As I mentioned before, today we have 3 entitlement options: 10 keywords, 50 keywords, and unlimited keywords. It's not a given that these will remain this way forever. We're playing around with ideas, and again, we welcome your feedback in terms of how these entitlements should work. But today, you can choose any of these 3 entitlements. Again, there's no charge while we're in beta. So you assign the entitlement, which is the right to manage these keywords, to a PBX user, and that PBX user then can log in to the end user interface to manage those keywords. And then, of course, the last step is to actually create the keywords. So just to show you how this is done, in the DID inventory manager, there's an SMS icon under the actions column. If you click that, you'll see something that looks like this. This is where you can enable SMS and MMS. You'll see here, this is my own direct dial phone number. It has both SMS and MMS enabled. You will not see MMS for Canadian numbers. As I previously mentioned, we can't support MMS in Canada currently, so you can only enable SMS on the Canadian numbers. And then once you've enabled SMS on a phone number, you can then have the option to assign the routing for the SMS messages on that number to one of several applications. For the keyword responder, you'll have to choose the directory bot. Now, before you assign the directory bot to a user, if you were to log into the end user interface, you'd see that there's no phone numbers. And the reason there's no phone numbers is because no phone numbers have been routed there yet. And so you have to route the phone number first before you're able to configure it. This is what the interface to the keyword responder looks like. So when you log in as a reseller, the first thing you have to do is choose a domain. Now, if you're logging in as an end user, either an office manager or a basic user that belongs to a domain, that domain is going to be shown here. And of course, you don't get the option to choose a different domain. You're managing your own domain. Once you log in and let's say you're logged in as an office manager, you're next going to have to choose a phone number. And this is a drop-down box that will show you all of the phone numbers that have been routed to the SMS bot within that domain. So then you select one of the phone numbers from the drop-down box and you get this screen that's shown here where you're managing a specific phone number. Now, a couple things about the screen. Here you have the ability to create a default response. Now, this bears a little explanation. If you just route a DID number to the SMS bot and don't configure any keywords, basically what you've done is you've enabled the directory bot. And the directory bot is the company directory for whatever domain that DID is associated with in the PBX. So if you don't configure any keywords and you send a message to that DID, the standard directory bot is you've reached the SMS bot for the name of the domain. To connect with a person, please reply with the person's name. The idea being that since it's the directory bot, the response we're looking for is the name of a user so that we can try and match the sender up with the person in the organization that they want to talk to and connect them with a phone call. Once you have keywords, though, you have a little more leeway in terms of the way that communication goes. So you can enter the default response here, and it can be anything, so that when somebody sends an SMS message, no matter what it says, you want to give them instructions in much the same way that you would give instructions on an auto attendant. So, of course, on an auto attendant, you're telling the caller what all the options are. To contact support, press 1. To contact customer service, press 2. Well, you can have that same type of response here in the default response. Of course, keep in mind SMS messages are only 160 characters, so it has to be short and sweet within that 160 characters. But you can also then have keywords, right? So they can reply with a keyword and it can reply with other options for them to follow. So also you'll notice on the top right-hand side, we're showing you the owner user, and the owner user is the user that phone number is actually routed to in the PBX. So in this case, this phone number 747-777-8100 is the main phone number for SkySwitch, and that's routed to our auto attendant, which in our domain happens to be user 800. So that's why in the top right-hand side, you see the owner user is 800. Now, for this particular screenshot, I was logged in as the domain manager, so that's why I have the option to choose any phone number within the domain. But if I were to log in as, say, just as user 800, so I used user 800's login name and password, I would only be able to manage this particular phone number. So this is a way where you can give specific people within your customers' organizations the ability to manage SMS, where maybe you don't want to give them the ability to manage the whole domain's SMS numbers and just one phone number, for example. The other parts of this page are you'll notice that there are 3 tabs below the default response. One is for keywords, one is for history, and one is for send SMS. So the keywords are where you configure the keywords, which was the third step and the final step to make this work. And so to configure the keyword, and I'll show you this live in a minute, you would just click the new keyword button. The history and the send SMS options, as you would expect, history will show you the history of all of the messages that have been received by the bot. You can search for specific phone numbers and see just the history of that specific phone number. And send SMS is where you can send outbound SMSs. And when you send the outbound SMS, the caller ID that's seen by the receiver will be the same as the number that you're configuring. So this is the way so what this means, of course, is when somebody sends a message to the bot, the bot may or may not reply with what they want. Anybody who has access to this interface can come in, log in, and send another SMS message, a manual SMS message to one or more of the people who have sent messages in. Okay, so this is just showing the different parts of the keyword page. So on the left here we have the keyword itself. The reply is what will what will be sent back, and adding the new keyword is done with that new keyword button. When to add a new keyword, you would just type in the keyword. When you click new keyword, excuse me, you'll get a modal. Another window will pop up, and you can put in the keyword that you want to trigger the response off of, and you can put in the reply here. The reply can also add an MMS file, so either a picture or a video can be sent back. Okay, so some things to remember before we actually go into the live session. Setup instructions are available in the help docs. So in the dashboard, on the little help button on the right, if you type in SMS Responder, you'll see the instructions that I just went over here. And the last thing to remember is your customers are going to be buying this service from someone. You've got an advantage, a first mover's advantage. You should take advantage of it and really try and sell this. And we're here to help you. You know, I'm always available. I love talking about SMS. If you've got any questions, if you want to talk about features, anything, get in touch with me. Send me an email, give me a call, send me an SMS. I'm more than happy to engage with you. Okay, so now I'd like to turn it over to some questions, and Jason, if you want to read them off, I'll actually open up a browser window here.
Okay, so let me get over to the questions, and let me pop this out real quick. Okay, so our first question comes from Jim. I put this in as a support ticket, but I have a customer that needs to be able to take a tracking number, access their database software, and respond with details. How would this work?
Okay, so that's actually a little bit more than we can do today with the keyword responder. That would require that the application actually talks to another system, the system that knows the status of that tracking number, and would be able to query whatever that database was and reply with that. We're working on ways to make that happen, to integrate with CRMs. Of course, you know, it's a very specific type of integration that's required for each different CRM. So you know, but certainly it could be developed. There's an API to our SMS infrastructure, so you could have that inbound SMS message hit your own application. Your application could do the lookup in whatever database had the requisite information that need to be replied back, and then your application could send that response back through SkySwitch.
Gotcha. Okay, the next question comes from from Jeff. If you start with unlimited keywords and later decide to downgrade to say 50 keywords, are the existing keywords removed, and do you have to start over?
I'm going to say that if you start with unlimited keywords, we're going to give you the unlimited keywords at the lowest cost, whatever that happens to be. So it's an advantage to you to start using this early while we're still in beta. Of course, we're relying on your feedback to make this a better product, and so that is what you'll get in return.
Okay. Next question comes from Barry. What is the URL we point our CNAME to for the custom URL?
Okay, that's completely in your control. So let me pull this up. Okay, so I'm in the dashboard, and I'm logged in as Jason, as I usually do for demos. And you'll notice if you're the administrator for your organization, you'll see a reseller settings menu item. If you click that, and again, if you don't see that menu item, or you don't see branding, which is one of the options underneath that menu, please don't put a ticket with support, but it should be there in your user interface. Anyway, if you click that branding, one of the options on the left-hand side is the SMS login page. And when you come here, you can create your own domain. So as long as it matches the wildcard domain, so you know, whatever domain you happen to be using for your PBX, you can change this to be SMS. In this case, it's sms.skyswitch.com. So that's the domain that you would use to point the. Actually, this should be an A record in this case, the DNS A record to this interface. Next question.
Yes. What would the URL be if not a custom SMS domain? I think you just kind of answered that.
Yeah, you really have to. It's up to you. You have to choose the domain, and then you point the DNS for that domain to this interface.
Okay. Question from Lewis. Do the keywords respond if they are a partial of the texter's question? So if I have a keyword, web, and they text web page, website, etc., will it respond with the web response?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Today, it won't. Today, it has to match the keyword exactly. But what is on our roadmap and will be available very soon, and pardon me while I just navigate here. So I'm logged in as the reseller. So as I mentioned, you can pick any domain, any reseller domain, and then once you're in that domain, you can pick any phone number. So what we're working on and what will be ready very soon is we're calling it equivalence. So this will be like misspellings or other words that are equivalent to a keyword. So if you have the keyword web, you can create an equivalent that says web page, and now anybody that sends to web page will get the keyword response for web.
Okay, very good. Next question comes from Guy. I don't see the API info on SMS with the other API docs. Am I missing it, or is it in another place?
That is a good question. I will have to look into whether that has actually been published. It should be under telco.readme.io. Let me go there and just see. Okay, so from looking at this, it seems like we have not yet published the APIs, but we will get that done.
Congratulations, Guy. You just got a $25 Amazon gift card for stumping the presenter. All right. Having a little fun here. Next question. I may have missed this, but can we use Let's Encrypt for SSL? Can the portal and SMS cert be the same?
Okay, so we've looked at Let's Encrypt. Obviously, it's free, which is nice. The problem with Let's Encrypt, as far as I know, and I know they were working to change this, but to the best of my knowledge, they don't offer an auto renewal option, and so it seemed impractical to have an SSL certificate that wouldn't auto renew. Our plan is to support Let's Encrypt when that auto renewal option is available. If it's available today, let me know, and we'll get to work on it. But as of today, we don't support Let's Encrypt for that reason. What was the second part of that question?
Yeah, is the keywords also case sensitive?
They are not case sensitive, so that does not come into play.
Okay, I got a question from Jim here. Would the bot recognize an SMS enabled caller?
I'm not sure I understand, meaning
that maybe SMS is enabled on the voice, on the actual DID, inbound DID. I don't think there's any way to track that.
So if it starts out as a phone call, the idea is that the user is initiating the interaction with, at least in this interface, the user is initiating the contact with the SMS bot. So by definition, anybody who initiates an SMS has SMS capabilities. In the near future, we're going to be releasing other applications. One of those will be an SMS broadcast application where you can send broadcast messages to multiple SMS recipients. And in that interface, which is currently in the works, we are going to we're going to indicate which numbers are SMS capable. So we do a lookup on the number, and we'll tell you if it's a mobile phone. That I don't really see that as coming into play though with this application.
Okay, Eric. Well, that's all the questions that we have for today. And I believe that's going to conclude our SkySwitch series webinar on SMS Bot. I'd like to thank everybody for attending today, and we will be sending out a recording of this webinar for your future viewing. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.